music, books, movies, all of the media often portray couples as having this carnal sexual chemistry that leads to consistent, spontaneous, and orgasmic sex every single time. This common portrayal has put an emphasis on spontaneous desire over responsive and understanding contextual desire, which then leads many people to feel sexually inadequate. So before we go further, let's go over what we currently understand as 3 types of desire. Spontaneous sexual desire is desire that shows up instantly, with or without stimulation, and can include physiological genital responses. So we're looking at erections and vaginal lubrication. It's that seemingly random experience of horniness that comes up while you're not doing anything remotely sexual. But that physical and mental sexual excitement has been portrayed as the standard sign of arousal in sexual health. This can get tricky too because of something called arousal non-concordance, which is when our brain and our body are not on the same page. We can mentally want to have sex, but our body is not responding in the same way in terms of arousal, and vice versa. The body might show signs of arousal, but our brain doesn't want sex. And though it can be easy to assume that genital arousal indicates sexual desire, that may not always be the case. But nonetheless, we compare our brains and bodies to this standard and start seeking solutions when we feel something is amiss. When someone experiences shame and disappointment because although they experience spontaneous desire, they struggle with maintaining an erection or feel that using lube is sad and bad and a sign of the ultimate sexual decline. So everyone wants to want sex spontaneously at the drop of a dime when their partner wants it, but that isn't realistic. And some argue that all desire is responsive, as there is almost always a source of stimulation, however indirect it might be. When people sit in my office and fantasize about their honeymoon phase and wanting to get even an inkling of that sexual ferocity back in their relationship, they tend to forget that quite a lot of effort actually went into the relationship. The ongoing contact, thoughtful dates, pillow talk, the newness and novelty of it all. This all contributed to what we'll explore later as contextual factors. So maybe you do have a spontaneous sexual desire, but it's also likely that your relationship felt a lot different when sex was more frequent. Now we'll look at responsive sexual desire, which shows up in response to stimulation or after experiencing physical sensation. This might be a brief sensory experience, such as watching or reading a steamy scene. It might be a short kiss on the neck that one responds to. For others, the physical sensation needs to be significant in duration, such as kissing and cuddling while watching a movie together. And then for others, the stimulation might need to be more direct and involve more senses, such as massaging, dirty talk, kissing, and maybe even genital touch. So it's important to note that some people with a responsive style may not always read sexual cues well or in the same way as their partner. They might just think, oh, that was nice. And then they resume what they were doing before the initiation attempt. I've worked with countless clients who've expressed a general sense of cluelessness when their partner is saying, that was me trying to initiate with you. Oops. I also like to begin tying in non-sexual examples to really normalize and depathologize having a responsive desire style. How often do we find ourselves completely uninterested or even directly avoidant in something at first? I'm thinking about the time a friend invited me out to a group dinner and I wasn't in the mood to people. But I decided to go, and fast forward to the end of the night, I'm glad that I went. I met some cool people, had some laughs, ate good food. The whole thing was great. There are different ways this could have played out. Maybe I was getting ready and I played some music that really energized me. I chose an outfit I've been waiting to wear. I applied a fragrance that I really enjoy. Just really getting in the mood, and I started thinking, you know what? this might not be so terrible after all. And I start feeling open to the possibility of having a good time. And once I got there, that's exactly what happened. Or maybe none of that mattered, and it wasn't until I got there and started mingling that I began to feel like, okay, this wasn't a terrible idea, and I'm having a good time. Or consider a time when you were so in the zone with work that you hadn't thought about eating. But once your colleague asked if you wanted to grab lunch, you think, actually, yes, I am hungry. Better yet, maybe you don't feel too in the mood to eat, but then your food is delivered. The aroma surrounds you, making you salivate and feel eager to eat. You grab that first bite, and then you realize just how much you're ready to dive in. If you can relate to any of these examples, or you had a thought of your own, then you understand how responsive desire works. You understand that it makes sense and it is completely valid as a response to what we may be wanting or not knowing what we want. And along those lines, I want to mention the book Desire, an inclusive guide to navigating libido differences in relationships by Dr. Lauren Mercy and Dr. Jennifer Wenzel, who share that there are 4 requirements for responsive desire to occur: consent, pleasure, focus, and timing. So that means the stimulus or the sensory experience has to be wanted, or at least the person has to be open to the possibility. The experience needs to feel good, and we have to be in a mindful and present place, meaning we kind of have to be able to receive it. And then the duration of the stimulation has to be right. The timing has to be right. And we can see that represented throughout the non-sexual examples that I shared. Lastly, we have contextual sexual desire, which shows up when the circumstances and the environment are right. What is happening with us mentally, emotionally, socially, in our immediate living space, and even globally, all impacts our ability to feel and access sexual desire. To turn towards sexual cues and to be open to sexual advances and connection really depends on what is happening in our world. It's vital to understand that the factors and context impacting sexual desire don't only refer to sexual factors, such as being turned on by someone's physique and engaging in foreplay. Experiencing sexual turn-offs can outweigh the presence of sexual turn-ons, especially when there is an imbalance between the two. When a client is feeling work-related stress, relational disconnection, and sexual pain, for example, it can be difficult to be open to sexual connection. In fact, it makes sense to be unwilling to connect sexually when you're not getting along with your partner, when you're struggling to stay present in the moment, or you are concerned that it may be painful. The dual control model has been instrumental in both understanding sexual response and normalizing varying experiences. This model, created by Dr. Eric Jansen and Dr. John Bancroft, conceptualized what we colloquially describe as sexual turn-ons and sexual turn-offs, the factors that encourage or discourage sexual arousal and interest. Furthermore, the dual control model emphasizes the need for a balance between these factors, which can support you in helping your client understand their sexual arousal experience and uncover the factors that impact their sexual desire. Emily Nagoski, author of Come As You Are and Come Together, amazing books that dive into sexual desire, says that regardless of gender, most people fall within a combination of responsive and contextual desire, and that though desire may feel spontaneous, it may be that the person is simply not aware of the contextual factors at play. Earlier understandings of sexual desire and arousal were way more linear and straightforward. One became excited and aroused, they reached orgasm, and then returned to their baseline during the refractory period. This model didn't consider the complexity of human sexual arousal. So we've come a long way in understanding sexual desire and responses, and I want to introduce Rosemary Bassan's model of sexual motivation because it includes the new understanding. This non-linear model includes spontaneous desire while also creating space for responsive desire and contextual factors. This model is much more affirming and speaks to how many people actually experience sexual desire and motivation. So let's now explore these contextual factors that might serve as barriers to accessing desire.